Every week, players gather at their local game stores. They trade, and they battle valiantly for both fun and glory. But amidst their triumph, only two will make it to the finals to fight. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Final Fights, and tonight we have Robin versus Yamato, both 3-0 at my local game store. And funny enough, you might recognize those hands, or you may not, but that's me on the left playing Robin. Ended up pulling a pretty great winning streak here. Beat Lucci, beat Dovi, beat a Yamato, and then have to face another Yamato in the finals. This is going to be quite an interesting matchup because Robin tends to struggle a little bit against aggro decks, and we know Yamato's going to be swinging pretty hard, but luckily I won the die roll as the Robin player, so Yamato no turn 2 play on the 2 Dawn, and I am instead of swinging a big 8k swing at opponent, instead we're just going to swing with a 5k swing because we're going to prioritize blockers here early, and we're going to go ahead and play out good old Brûlé blocker to try to stave off a big swing from Yamato, kind of dissuade Yamato from swinging at least 9k on their first swing, because I don't really want to go down lower than I need to at this specific time. Opponent's just going to go ahead and swing 6k, get counter out by the 2k, 3 Dawn left up for Yamato, potentially could be like a Mihawk, yep, looks like a Mihawk, into like a Kikunojo or a Nekomamushi. Pretty solid target. Nekomamushi is actually scarier than a Kikunojo. Kikunojo, sure, it'll gain you life potentially if it gets KO'd, but Nekomamushi being able to clear blockers away, which is kind of Robin's early to mid game play style, is just to play blockers out. Looks like there is a Robin in Robin's hand right now. That could be a potential play. Does have it set up pretty easily for the 6-drop play, but that Nekomamushi is quite a problem here. Just gonna pretty much invalidate all of Yamato's blockers. Or all of Robin's blockers, and so likely could end up switching over and trying to swing at that instead. We'll see what Robin ends up doing here. Playing down the Robin does allow you to trash the top card of life, but it leaves Nekomamushi on the field, because if you swing a 5k into it, the opponent with 4 cards in hand, very easily going to counter out of that there. So looks like Robin, count up the Dawn here. Does not have looking at the hand as well, does not look like they have any triggers either, so the Robin being the only trigger in hand too, so it looks like there's a lot of 9 drops in hand right now, so definitely want to get up to 9. We're gonna go for it. We're gonna just swing a big old swing, pitch the Robin, kind of recognizing that Nekomamushi is going to be a big problem, and we want to ensure that we can get to our good old 9 Dawn turn on the next turn here. Passing back to Yamato here. Cleared 1 threat, but there's potentially going to be another as Yamato goes into the 6 Dawn turn. Could potentially play things like a Kikunojo, could attach a bit to swing face, but I do luckily have a blocker on board, which is going to easily clean up any big swing if my opponent decides to overcommit. My hand, the Robin player, looks like there's no counter in hand right now. Unfortunately, breaking up a little bit. Robin kind of goes one of 2 ways. You either draw all of your counter and none of your big drops, or you draw all your big drops and none of your counter here. So we'll see how potentially I could survive as I fend off Yamato's aggression. Yamato known for just swinging wide. Opponent's gonna swing 5k. I'm just gonna go ahead and take it because I think that blocker is worth keeping up later. We end up picking up a 2k, and then we end up revealing a Nico Olivia, allowing us to draw 2 Trash 2 here. End up picking up 2 more 2ks and a Yamato here. Really trying to decide what we want to get rid of. I think thumbing the Big Mom to the front of the hand here as a potential thing to get rid of here. Not a lot of great targets for Big Mom currently on the board. Later on could be some decent targets, but right now definitely don't want to be putting a 2k back into Robin's life, back into Yamato's life here. So we're gonna just go ahead and discard the Beige and the Big Mom here, kind of opting to keep some more 2ks in hand to help stave off all of this aggression here. So that trigger, which is still sitting on the board, that card does not get put into play. Nico Olivia will be put in the trash once I notice it's there. But that'd be crazy if it was an on play too. But anyways, opponent's gonna go ahead and swing this good old 7k into lead here. I do have 2 2ks and I could use those 2 2ks, but I think right now we're just gonna go ahead and block. Don't really want to go any further, but I end up, Robin player ends up making a bit of a misplay here, as they're at 6 life across the board, a Yamato in hand, and plays a Momonosuke, and decides to play out Oh, interesting play. So it looks like I've got a 5k going into Mihawk here. Opponent decides to counter out of it instead of blocking with Momonosuke. Momonosuke notably does have blocker, so opponent Yamato player just absolutely missed that. And now Robin player again making a bit of a misplay here. Could have still KO'd the Momonosuke and gained a life back, but instead gave up a blocker, which might end up hurting the Robin player later in the game here. See if they can try to stave off some of this aggression. Robin just needs to get to 10 Dawn. Once they get to 10 Dawn, they can start slamming down big drops and using Gum Gum Giant to counter out of attacks. Robin kind of struggles being at 9, but we're going to get there soon enough here as Yamato, back to good old Yamato's turn. And man, I tell you, I haven't seen Yamato in a hot minute. And I haven't really seen anybody ripping him, but the opponent that I played against said he pretty much like went 40 out of 50 games. He won like 140 games, and he said Blackbeard was his favorite matchup because that Yamato just steamrolls over Blackbeard. So was hoping to play a Blackbeard tonight. Unfortunately did not play a Blackbeard tonight. Gonna see a 9k swing go at lead here, and I just cannot take that here. And this is that situation where I would have really loved to have the blocker, especially because that's banish. That's double attack banish. I do not want to lose those 2 lives. So we're just going to use those 3 2Ks out of hand and kind of lean on that Yamato next turn. And opponent decides not to swing 5k here. Was really expecting a 5k swing, but opponent respecting potentially another Yamato getting free value here. And two turns in a row. The first turn I took myself off of Yamato gaining any value, but another turn here punished by a little bit of my opponent's foresight. We do end up finding a Big Mom here. Could go for the Big Mom play as just a way to establish, but then we would likely discard the Yamato. Big Mom not the best when you only got 3 cards in hand and the other card's a Gum Gum Giant, because Gum Gum Giant also requires you to discard a card. So we're gonna start with a 5k at lead. Opponent's always gonna have to try to counter out of this because they do not want to give up life for free, because Robin always has gonna be swinging with some banish here. And kind of debating back and forth. Again, if you play the Big Mom, you're just gonna end up discarding too many cards and not having Gum Gum. But could just play the Yamato out and go for another just kill on the Mihawk just to try to stymie down some pressure, as my opponent, now that I'm at the 3 or less life threshold here, Yamato's leader ability is going to start attaching Dawn to things. So that's potentially just a 6k swinger every turn. And my hand does not have any easy counter in there, though we now have a Gum Gum Giant. But if I Gum Gum Giant a little too early, I could be losing that Big Mom. So we're going to potentially just take at least 1 hit here to try to fuel the Gum Gum Giant. But one thing that we're trying to dodge right now is a 9-cost Zoro. Some Yamato decks do run 9-cost Zoro. I was with my experience playing against it, I had not seen one yet, but I was potentially expecting one. So you're kind of like fighting this window of trying to stay alive, trying to establish board, but also trying to dodge 9-cost Zoro. And we're just gonna use the beige. We end up taking the double hit off of Yamato. We're gonna use the beige to stop the Onami, and there is 9-drop Zoro. Not the card I wanted to see. That 9-drop Zoro is going to make my life incredibly difficult. I do have a Gum Gum Giant in hand, and I do have a blocker on the field, but man, I am in a really bad spot. I also took a turn off from swinging with one of the Yamatos. Was kind of afraid of giving my opponent a trigger, put something into play, so my opponent's still sitting at good old 4 life here. An opponent's going down to 1 card in hand, really leaning on the Zoro here. I'm going to start attacking him now because I have to try to go for game here and hope that my 1 life card that this Linlin's going to give me is going to potentially give me something like a beige to stay alive here. But that Zoro is the ultimate game winner in matchups like these where you can't just deal with him immediately. But we're going to go ahead and play Linlin -1 Dawn and then gain 1 life here, and just hoping for a beige. A beige will potentially keep me surviving maybe a little bit here, but it's still just in a really bad spot against Yamato here. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and put Nami on life now. Beige, it's basically beige or bust. If we get a beige here, we'll be able to potentially survive if my opponent doesn't have some way to rest my blocker here. But my opponent immediately shows me a Heavenly Fire. Heavenly Fire gonna go ahead and tap down my blocker here, and I give Zoro plus 1k, and then my opponent's going to attach at least, it looks like a 5 or 6k onto, yeah, nice little 6k onto Zoro, swinging 16 here. 16. I'm going to have to take that. Unfortunately, not what I wanted to see. Not a beige. And opponent's just going to swing again. And I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, and we're just going to use the Gum. Just see what we can find. But we're not going to find enough counter to counter out of a 16k hit. So might as well use it for funsies to see what we could have potentially drawn hit off life if we had sequenced things slightly differently. But Yamato pushing in hard here. Zoro cleaning up the game. And that is it there. Yamato going 4-0 against a whole lot of gamers. And unfortunately, Robin not able to carry it all the way to victory. If opponent didn't see a Zoro that turn, the game totally could have been different. I definitely would have been trying to clean up the game as quick as possible with my opponent only having 2 cards in hand. But unfortunately, Zoro came and claimed victory. Anyways, if you like this type of content, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.